everybody. I'm Pastor Rick, and this is Power and Dominion Ministries presents Straight Talk on Scripture, and my guest today is Reverend Pat Ciante, one of the elders from our church at Living Water. And Pat is going to be talking about faith, offense, the things we go through as we have relationship with God and relationship with other people. So without further ado, Pat.
Yes. Good morning. So in the last few weeks, or maybe month, some situations happened in my life that really I was very disappointed about and actually offended. But I realized...
Now, were you offended with God or other people?
With God.
Okay, all right. That
but
happens.
It's, yeah, and relationship with God should be the same. We're in relationship. It's our emotions and our minds, our hearts, everything's involved. But it took me a few days. I was just really very upset about it. It was a financial thing, and it's being worked on. But I remember finally saying, "All right, God, why am I feeling like as badly as I do?" And I realized because I felt he hurt me. He disappointed me because he allowed something to happen that I thought he knew how important it was, how hard I worked on this particular thing for 10 years. And then, all of a sudden, whoosh,
Right.
And so I thought, like, how did Jesus allow that to happen to me? Right. And once I realized that, I was being a baby to some degree. I mean, because it was serious, but with all this going on today, it really wasn't that serious.
Well, the truth is, and I think our listeners can relate, I'm sure a lot of people get offended with God because they're expecting better treatment.
Yeah.
And when it doesn't happen in the time frame we set, we feel disappointed. We feel he let us down. We're human.
He did. But I mean, then actually I got over it. Once I identified what was going on, because sometimes we have to really seek God to see what is really going on inside me, instead of reacting and, bloviating on everybody around us or something,
Right.
And so I just said, I guess I'm being a baby. I'll just let this go. And I just am trusting. And it's all about trust and faith. I mean, in any relationship, but especially our relationship with God, I have to know, like I know, I can really trust him. And that's faith. And of course, without faith, being tested, we don't know what we have.
Can I interject for our audience? How long have you been walking with the Lord?
I believe
about 50 years?
No, 45 years this year.
45
this year.
years. So you've been walking with the Lord longer than you've been alive. I mean, you've been walking with him longer than you haven't been.
Right, I agree. Yes, finally. But anyway, I was going through this and just talking to God, and the reality is, I'm still working in the same situation. Things are getting better. However, I'm not feeling the same way, because as you meet with God and wrestle with your own emotions can, God gave us emotions, but they can run our life, and we don't want that as Christians.
Right.
Emotions should never run our life, good or bad or anything else.
Right.
And so as I was praying and thinking about us doing this segment, one of my favorite, probably, I'm not going to rate it, but it's one of my very most favorite scriptures in Philippians chapter 3, verse 10 through 14, where he talks about that I might know him, meaning Christ, and the power of his resurrection, a fellowship of his sufferings. Now, of course, right there alone is like, and it was I read it when I was a very young Christian. I was probably the first year I was saved, or the second, but God really impressed it with me. And I remember praying it, and I felt like I got this thought. It was probably my subconscious that knew better. Said, it's not a good prayer to pray. It really is, but it isn't. But the fellowship of his sufferings, and I've had some tragic things take place, but things a little, we rate things, but all things do affect us because we're still in our humanness. But what do we do with them is the key thing, is what God says, and in this portion of scripture, he talks about forgetting those things which are behind and reaching forward. And that's part of life, pressing, reaching, pushing, trusting, that God is really who he says he is. And sometimes, we get caught up in situations, we forget who we are, we forget who God is. And it's these situations where we have to stop and say, wait a minute, how did this happen? Whatever it might be. And regroup with God,
Right,
and it's just
right.
because we're busy, we have everyday lives and following after God, but then, things kind of swallow us up sometimes, good things and bad things.
I think it's important for our audience to understand that God doesn't get mad at us for getting offended at him.
No,
because he's just bigger than that. He realizes we're human and we're going to get disappointed. And so,
Amen.
Thank God, right?
Yes.
Thank God he doesn't
Thank
get
God
mad
is
at us
right.
for getting mad at him. But what would your advice be to maybe the several hundred people that are going to watch this video, as disappointment comes to them? What would your advice be to them to get through it, to come out on the other side still in relationship with God?
Just totally set your mind, stop wherever you're doing, momentarily, hours, whatever it has to be, but take time alone with God before you allow it to take hold of your life and affect other people's lives. And it gets bigger. Let's face it, things in the natural get bigger and bigger if we don't deal with them. And it's always that time of, I have to regroup, God. Like I'm on my trail hiking and I took a left turn and I got to stop and figure out where am I? And I have to go to God. And what the Lord reminded me of was a vision he gave me. Like, I'm not talking some big vision, just I have several different things that God gives me like a snapshot, so to speak. But when he does something like that, you never forget it. And it's about faith and trusting him. And this was maybe 20 or so years ago. And periodically, I'll go back to this place because it was a place of meeting with God and understanding. And understanding me. God helps me to understand me. And we do need to understand what's going on inside of us. And only God can help us do that. And so this vision is about faith. And I don't remember the situation. It was something that was ongoing. It could have been any one of many things. And I remember struggling, and I remember trying to talk to God and understand and give me an insight of what was going on inside of me, because I was really in a bad way. I mean, nobody knew I was in a bad way, but inside, And he gave me a vision, a very quick flash of a big, huge tree out in the middle of nowhere. And all of a sudden I realized, I felt like I had to run. I was running for something safe. And I climbed the tree, and then I had to kind of creep out with my hands to the end of a branch. And I remember saying to God, this is how I feel, God. This is really how I feel. I am hanging from the end of this branch. And now I kind of think that this branch is going to break. And I hear this raging river, like Delaware Water Gap in the spring. That's how it was, that kind of, lots of rocks and current and waterfalls. Yes. And I remember saying, well, now I'm hanging onto this tree, but if the branches break, or the branch breaks, I'm done. And very quietly, that subtle, quiet voice within inside of me said, and so I'm not a big enough God to keep you in the river, only on the branch. And I see it, God uses these situations to stretch us. So either we pass or we fail in my, and all of a sudden it hit me. It was like, wow, I'm thinking the branch breaks, it's over. And I realized, God, you are a great God. You're big enough to keep me if I fall in that river. I do believe it. So it's like you get pushed to that place, but it's a good thing. As we go through these things, we have to understand God means them for good. And I've gone back to this place many times when I feel like, this is it. This is not going to work.
On the branch.
Right, and that branch is going to break, but it makes no difference because he is big enough. And I guess that would be the thing I would pass on, and no matter what the situation, and my situation in this, what started this all off recently, is serious, but it's not that serious in comparison to all this going on today and other people. But, you know, God uses these things. He's always there. The problem is we don't reach out for him.
Yeah.
But it's faith. Our faith stretches. He stretches us.
Yes.
And, you know, the truth is deep inside me, but I had to get in touch with that.
Yes.
It knows no matter what, it's going to be okay. Because I trust God.
I believe every time you go through an experience like you described and you come out trusting in God,
Yeah.
you are a little more elevated in the kingdom. And I think God uses it to bring us along.
Yeah.
And so I want to thank you, Pat, for coming. For those of you listening, this is some wonderful stuff. If you need to listen to this, because I know many people listening out there
Yes.
are going through something. And
Yes.
so what Reverend Pat Shanti has shared is something that you can hold on to and use it to get through your trial. So thank you very
Amen.
much.
Thank
and
you.
remember, with Jesus, there's always hope, there's always love.